Hey guys, so if you missed my lesson today, first we talked about perimeter and area, and then we got into volume. So let's first talk about perimeter and area. So perimeter is the outside of a shape, and all you have to do is add up the sides. So this is true for any shape to find the perimeter. So for this, we're gonna add our 5 inches here plus our 5 on the opposite side plus 3 inches as our width plus the opposite side, and we end up with 16 inches. Okay, so that's how we find the perimeter of a shape. Now when we get to area, that's the inside portion, and so we just know for rectangles and squares, to find the area, we multiply the length times the width. So we're gonna do 5 times 3 and get 15. Except where before our perimeter was in inches, this is going to be in inches squared or squared inches, because we are multiplying 2 units together, okay? So that's gonna be our unit. So that would be, centimeters squared, square centimeters. We could use that for units, squared, square units. That's when we're talking about area, okay? So now let's talk about volume. Volume is going to be the amount of space that is in a solid figure. Okay, so volume is the amount of space in a solid figure or a three-dimensional figure. So what we're going to be doing today we're just going to be focusing on finding the volume of a rectangular prism. So rectangular prisms is what we are going to be focusing on today. So we had a lot of good examples during class today. A tissue box, a cardboard box, like a moving box, shoe box, a lot of boxes, a door, so a rectangular door. Ooh, I can spell. A rectangular door, a book. So any three-dimensional object that would be a rectangular prism, okay? So we had a bunch of different examples. These are just some of the main ones. So we're going to be talking about how we can find the volume of different rectangular prisms today. Okay. So when we are figuring out the volume, what we do is we fill our prisms with cubes, okay? Such as this, okay? We would use centimeter cubes in school, but I don't have those on me right now, so I just got a picture of a three-dimensional cube. If each side is 1 unit, okay, there's just one, so our volume of this is going to be 1 cubic unit. If each side length were 1 centimeter, this would be 1 cubic centimeter. And so on. If this was inches, cubic inches, if it were yards, cubic yards, whatever this unit is measured in, okay, if there's just one of them, it's just 1 cubic, and then whatever the measurement is. So we would use these to fill up our rectangular prism, and we would count them to see what the volume is. So we said that this was 1 cubic unit, okay? Well, what happens when we have something like this? Well, if I count up my cubic units, I've got 2. So my volume is going to be 2 cubic units. Now I go from that, and now I have this. Now I count those up. 4 cubic units. Now I can look at a figure like this. So I can count all my cubes, so I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I have a second layer behind it, so that's 24. So I can count those up and get 24 cubic units for my volume. Okay, so what we're doing is we're adding up the amount of cubes that it takes to fill up our rectangular prism, and that is its volume. Okay. So there is going to be another way that we can figure this out. So let me kind of move these to the side. So something that we can do is we can look at the dimensions of our unit, of our rectangular prism. So let's first try and figure out how many is in this first layer. So we can say that the length, or how long the rectangular prism is 4 units, or 4 cubes. Then we can see just how many rows there are. And how many rows there are is the width. So it is 3 units wide. So if we were trying to figure out, if we weren't even looking at this part, we could say, okay, how do we know how much is on one layer? Okay, so one layer would be 4 here and then 3 rows. So that's 4 times 3. Or multiplying the length times the width. And we end up getting 12. So this is in layer 1. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, or the height, which is 4. So now we have to add 12 up that amount of times, 4 times, 12, 12, 12, and 12, or we can multiply 12 times 4, which is then multiplying it by the height, which is 48 units. But it's not just units, because we multiplied 3 things and this is the volume. This is 48 cubic units. Or we can even write it 48 units cubed with a little 3, because we're multiplying 3 units together. Okay? So what we do is we can multiply length times width to get our first layer. And then we can multiply our first layer by the height. So we're multiplying length times width times height. And that is how we find the volume. So something else that you may have noticed when we did this is that we did length times width. And we talked about length times width in the beginning of the video. Length times width is also the same as finding the area. Okay? And when we did length times width, we ended up getting the base, or the area of the base. So when we do length times width, that is going to give us the area of the base, or that first layer. And then we just multiplied it by the height. So if we were to get a problem that did not have any cubes, it looked like this, and said the area of the base equals 10 inches squared, or 10 square inches, and the height is equal to 5 inches. What is the volume? So instead of giving you length and width already, they already gave you the area. They already multiplied length times width. So now all you have to do is take that area of the base and multiply it by the height, 5. So 10 times 5 is 50. So we have then 50 inches cubed, or 50 cubic inches. So 2 ways to find volume for rectangular prisms: length times width times height, or we find the area of the base, or given the area of the base, and multiply that by the height. Okay, so now let's do a couple examples. Well, first, actually, let's do this. So you may also get a problem that looks like this. They have the cubes here, but they don't have the whole thing filled up with cubes. So what we have to do is we have to find the length and the width and the height. So our length here is 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes, so 4 units. Our width is 1, 2, 3 units. And then our height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. So now all we have to do is just multiply 4 times 3 times 5. Now, you do not have to multiply it in order of length times width times height. You can multiply it in any order that you want, the order that's easiest for you. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to first multiply 4 times 5, and I'm going to get 20. And then I'm going to multiply it by 3, and I can easily count by 20s, 20, 40, 60. So my answer is going to be 60 cubic units, or 60 units cubed, because we have 3 units. Okay? So now let's do a few examples. All right, so let's first start off with this example. All right, so we have to find length, width, and height. Length, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Width, 1, 2, 3, 4. And height, 1, 2. 5 times 4 times 2. Well, 5 times 4 is 20, times 2 is 40 units cubed, or cubic units. Okay, let's do another example. Width is 5 centimeters. Length is 6 centimeters. Height is 11 centimeters. So we just multiply length times width times height. Okay. Remember, you can do it in any order that you would like to. 6 times 5 is 30 times 11. I know that if I do 11 times 3, I get 33, and then I'm just going to add a 0. So 330 centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. Now, what if you're given a rectangular prism like this, and they want you to find the volume, but all they say is that your length is 5 meters. But this is a cube. So what do we know about cubes? We know that with cubes, every side is the same length. So our length is going to be 5 meters, our width is going to be 5 meters, and our height is going to be 5 meters. So all we have to do is just multiply 5 times 5 times 5. Well, 5 times 5 is 25, and then times 5 is 125. So our volume is 125 meters cubed, or 125 cubic meters. So when we're figuring out volume, you either count up the cubes, or we multiply the length times the width times the height. Remember, only when we're dealing with rectangular prisms. Okay? Or you have the area of the base and you multiply that by height. So on Wednesday, we're going to be getting into a little bit more in depth about volume, maybe some more problem solving strategies when dealing with volume. So please come back. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you.